Sweet Française by Irene Nemirovsky. It's just the perfect novel to me. So I'd been writing since I was a kid, just as a hobby. But there was a moment when I was about 21 when I didn't want to be a dancer anymore. I trained in ballet and then contemporary dance for my entire life. And I realized I no longer loved it, which begs the question, well, what comes next? So I don't know that there was one single moment, but there was a turning point when I was 21 years old and decided to take writing more seriously and started writing what eventually became my first novel, Last Night in Montreal. I find myself thinking about a moment in Toronto when I was about 21 years old, and I was walking down a street one day. I picked up a free weekly news magazine. I read a review of a novel. I bought the novel. I became friends with a novelist, and through a very long sequence of events that eventually led to my entire current life in living in New York City. I've often thought that if I hadn't picked up that weekly newspaper, I might still be in Canada. I might even have continued as a dancer instead of switching to writing. So for me, it's very easy to imagine a parallel life, which is in many ways more plausible than the life that I'm actually living, because I have no training as a writer. I trained as a dancer and then somehow ended up writing novels. Believe it or not, the pandemic in Station 11 was entirely incidental to the plot. So the project of Station 11 was that I wanted to write fiction set in a post-technological world. But if you're going to end technology in fiction, that means you have to end the world. So to be honest, a pandemic was just a horribly effective way to get from point A to point B, so to speak. Which is to say, the pandemic wasn't really my interest in the book. It wasn't the point of the novel. But I understand why Station 11 is thought of as pandemic fiction, and of course, here we are. So, yeah, that's what happened there. You know, when I was writing Station 11, what I found myself thinking of was just how intensely local your world would become following a cataclysmic breakdown of society where the internet and telecommunications go down. We take it for granted now that we can pull a magic supercomputer out of our pocket and look at the news from anywhere on Earth and just know what's going on and have some sense of a broader world. But without technology, you could so easily lose that sense, and you'd definitely lose any awareness of what was happening in the world. So I think a globe would be the single most important thing, because I imagine that in that circumstance, the world of 100 kilometers away would seem impossibly far, and it would be easy to forget that there was a world, almost. So a globe would be the most important. I've always liked old documents. You know, they're like these little records of your previous life, and that would obviously be even more heightened in a Museum of Civilization scenario. So I think I would also keep my passports forever. I have 2 of them, so those are the other 2 items of the 3. There are 2 schools of thought in optioning your book for film and television. There is absolutely an approach of trying to maintain control and being intimately involved in every aspect of the process. The opposite approach is you take that check, you cash it, you walk away. And I've tried both. I'm involved in an adaptation of The Glass Hotel, and that has been an absolute joy. I'm so enjoying learning how to write for television and learning how to be in a writer's room. With Station 11, I was busy working on The Glass Hotel. I had other interests, and at that moment in my life, I wasn't that interested in writing for TV. So I took the approach of just saying, okay, there's the book. You go do your thing. And I hoped it would be good. What came out of that process was something that I think is pretty spectacular. I absolutely love that show. There are a lot of authors who I really admire. Someone whose work I very consistently admire is Zadie Smith. I absolutely love her writing. I also love David Mitchell's work, completely different genres. Those are 2 that come to mind just off the top of my head. Oh, and also Mohsin Hamid, I think is fantastic. I think art has profoundly shaped me as a person. It's very much shaped my choice of career, as a dancer and then as a writer. it's also just been important in my life for as long as I can remember. So I think it's probably shaped me in ways that I'm not consciously aware of, just from having been exposed to music and books for as long as I can remember, my entire childhood onward.